Thanks for joining us once again. Our focus today is several in terms of updating our conversation regarding the Tesla Semi. In particular, today we'll start off with the discussion of pricing differences between Freightliner and Tesla, but then move on to some of the other issues that are impacting Tesla currently. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks once again for joining us. If this is your first time, welcome. If you're a repeat visitor, welcome back. We also want to thank our Patreon supporters. If you enjoy the show and would like more information on better investing and trading, please join us on Patreon. So today, we usually have a once a week sort of what's going on with the Semi update in terms of new information that might have come out or new analysis that's appropriate for the truck. We're probably going to repeatedly dive into this, but one of the biggest sort of things that sort of popped up is the relationship between Tesla and Pepsi and Schneider and Pepsi in Southern California. So as you know, the relationship between the Tesla Semi and the Pepsi folks is going pretty well with 36 vehicles delivered already. And we think that the 100 that they're supposed to get for this year will actually happen. The other side of this is sort of competition from Freightliner / Daimler as they interface with their customer Schneider, and Schneider is using the planned 100 trucks that they're going to get that are EVs to do drayage work where they're moving finished product from the Rancho Cucamonga Frito Lay facility to the port of Los Angeles or Long Beach. And frankly, I'm surprised that they actually are finishing chips and putting them on ships because, in theory, they have a certain life cycle, and giving up 3 to 5 days on the water might affect that. But nonetheless, it is our research understanding that the trucks being used by Schneider for this drainage process that are electric vehicles are benefiting from the, if you will, the free deal. The port of Los Angeles and Long Beach are working to reduce emissions. So they're doing a process where they're offering extreme discounts in the form of rebates on electric vehicles going into the port, or in fact just outright paying for those vehicles, for the initial vehicles, to help with the setup costs of those operations as we move forward. So I chose the title today of 400,000 versus 250K because right now we're at the stage with both the Tesla Semi as well as the Freightliner Daimler Semi, where it seems as though the concentration of these vehicles that are being put into service are on the West Coast in California, and we'll expect to see them spread across the country over the next few years. Now, I am sort of fascinated from a business standpoint how all these numbers are going to work. As we shared numerous times, $250,000 for the Tesla Semi 500-mile range is what we're currently seeing. $400,000 for the largest battery on the 250-mile Freightliner vehicle is what we're facing right now. And, I wanted to throw out some questions because I don't actually have answers to them, but from a business standpoint, this is all going to come up. So for example, one big question is if you're paying $400,000 for 250 miles of range, that's a lot of money, especially if your usual vehicles cost about 130K to do the same thing. Yes, you can afford the additional costs because the California Air Resources Board is definitely supporting. So I expect the 100 vehicles to be purchased and in motion because they are being subsidized by the state of California. Now, what I don't get is how are you going to pay $250K for a vehicle that is low on freight. So the numbers that we got from Carnegie Mellon suggest that Tesla at this point is coming in, and its potential freight rate was weight is within 5,000 pounds of what you can currently get with a regular diesel truck. So, 80,000 pounds minus 35K, let's say we're at about 50,000 pounds of freight that you can tow in this vehicle. So the thing that I'm not getting here is if in fact you're going 250 miles and you're even at 250 miles, your freight weight is only 30,000 pounds, the numbers are not working great for Freightliner currently. And I really feel as though the more we watch it, this is what I call a grad school situation, where what it takes to deliver vehicles in the electric space for consumer automobiles that don't have weight restrictions, et cetera, is very easy. Now that we're entering graduate school or a PhD program in the form of the semi, we have this crazy thing happening where there are constraints that Tesla is the only one that's successfully delivering quality numbers currently. As you may recall, we discussed the fact that Sandy Munro plans to buy a semi and pull it apart. And we're actually going to have independent testing on the vehicle coming up in September as well. The thing that I'm not getting is that when you consider the software related to the management of the batteries, that whole situation, and you consider the motors being developed and being used by Tesla, you could pretty much go through the vehicle completely and discover the thermal management system I discussed and the motors and how they work together with the other, little things like aerodynamics of the truck sort of add up to the sauce that makes Tesla unique. So clearly there has been a process now where Tesla is still being holding back on outside entities having access to the truck so that they can go through it thoroughly. Obviously, this is still occurring, but I don't think that once they get to do this, they aren't going to be taking apart anything other than what they would be doing with the thermal management system and the 2170 batteries that are currently set up in most of the vehicles for Tesla, as well as the performance of the motors that are being run by Tesla in this situation as well. Obviously, we're beefing up to a semi level, so that's the other part of what we're going to actually be seeing. But in general, what I was reaching out for is just the fact that much of why the semi is unique is already on the streets for Tesla, and it hasn't been defeated at the auto level, so I'm not seeing how it's going to be defeated or reverse engineered at the truck level rapidly, like it seems Tesla has a fear of, given the fact that they're not allowing large amounts of those vehicles to be delivered to end users and are very under strict sort of restrictions while it's in the hands of Pepsi. So basically today, I leave the question of, for this section of our talk, how are those guys going to compete with Tesla when it comes to Tesla's offering a 250K, 500-mile range vehicle that can pull most of the weight that's needed against Ecascadia's ability to deliver 250 miles at sort of below standard freight weight and charge $400,000 for it. Well, one of the answers that's out there for now is that Tesla has, or Daimler Freightliner has 1 million miles of customer use of their vehicles that's been used. So, obviously there's a claim there that you can reference where they've delivered more real miles that we really haven't seen, but they're claiming because what they've been doing is handing sort of free or extremely discounted vehicles to longtime customers around the world to help try and retain market share in the space. And so that's worked because those customers are still sort of riding with their longtime partner. But I have a hard time seeing how, in a freight environment currently where things are really tight, high fuel costs combined with low freight rates, that that 100 that 250K to 400K range, there will be tax credits that help you know ease these products into the marketplace. But I just think it's going to be very hard for customers to overpay and still be viable, especially if they do this at scale with their fleets. So, you know, the one thing that I was also thinking about that came up is that Pepsi, in the case of Schneider, is contracting Schneider to move freight to the port from their Rancho Cucamonga facility, but they're buying that. Schneider's doing the interface along with other manufacturers to directly go to the port, get the subsidy, and because they have the subsidy, they probably can stay within range of what they're doing with diesel trucks because they're basically getting a free truck that's in test on reduction of pollution in the process. So, obviously the next step is once they've gotten their full complement of free trucks, now they have to decide if they want to buy more expensive trucks, and Pepsi would actually have to pay higher prices for that freight to make up for the net cost of operations, particularly acquisition, at $400,000 per versus the $130K per vehicle that Schneider is paying currently for its ICE vehicles. So obviously we'll keep you in touch with what we learn on this circumstance. I have to say further, I'm a little surprised here that, for example, Pepsi didn't do a thing where half of their trucks would be used in Southern Cal, half in Northern California, and that way they could start the process of building fleets in both places when it came to Tesla. Perhaps the answer is that the Schneider relationship will affect things, but Schneider is not moving between warehouses as they are in Northern California or even to grocery stores. They're simply moving to the port to move finished goods onto ships that'll be moved out of the country. So we'll see. Obviously, we'll keep you up to date on what we learn on this circumstance, and add as we know more. I wanted to also note that we're going to finish up today, but plan tomorrow on a series that we'll be doing on the Cybertruck. The plan is for us to try to do some research and start delivering one show a week relative to the Cybertruck, because now that we're seeing more copies of them out there, there's a lot of news that's developing. And I particularly want to dive into some of the economics that have really turned my head on whether or not the Cybertruck might have a broader audience than just, a bunch of hobbyists that are in that 100K willing to spend zone. So, at any rate, I want to thank you for joining us on the show today. Keep an eye out in Northern California for the semi as it moves freight between different Tesla facilities. And we'd love to see some photos if you get any. Any rate, this is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Tschüss, German, au revoir, French, Lahith Road, Hebrew. Our health tip for today is just a reminder, the 25 leg lifts a day, along with a 20-minute walk per day, is highly recommended by the doctors we've interfaced with. And I think it'll really assist you in sort of better health and quality of life. Have a great day. Bye for now. Tschüss, au revoir, Lahith Road. And in Jamaica, we say enough respect, walk good, man. Thanks, and bye for now.